we need to bring back printed commonplace books. Now, commonplace books in general have been enjoying a bit of a renaissance, at least here on YouTube. Lots and lots of people searching for what a commonplace book is and different ways to go about keeping them. As it turns out, there are many different ways that you can keep a commonplace book, but one of my favorite ways has not become more popular. I wish it would, because we need to bring it back, and that is the printed commonplace book. So first things first, what is a commonplace book? Well, I am an accidental notebook czar, and so I've been working on a working definition of a commonplace book for my own book, Journal Like a Philosopher, which is forthcoming. So let me just read my working definition for us really quick. A commonplace book is a collection of quotations which may or may not be arranged according to common places or common headings, and which is organized according to a particular scope and purpose for a particular audience. So each one of those elements is actually really important. So a commonplace book is a collection of quotations, first and foremost. It's not just a general place for all your miscellany. It's not for to-do lists and everything like that. Commonplace books have always been places for quotations, or at least since the Roman rhetoricians. If you go all the way back to Aristotle, he had this term koinoi topoi, commonplaces. He was referring to something more like a compendium of arguments. But by the time that concept got to the Roman rhetoricians, they started adding quotations. And then since then, it's been a collection of quotations. So that's what a commonplace book is. Why is it called a commonplace book? Well, because of the common places, the common headings. These are the things by which you arrange the different quotations in your collection of quotations. So how will you ever find that quotation again? Well, you label them according to different common places. Maybe it's justice, and that's like the tag or the heading that's common to all the different quotations that have to do with justice. So you say, hey, I am making a speech and I need a quote on justice. Okay, let me just scan through my commonplace book and look for all the tabs, all the common places, all the ones that say justice on them. That's where I can search through and find my quote on justice more easily. So commonplace books can be arranged according to common places. That's why they're called that. They can also not be arranged that way. Think of the book of Proverbs in the Bible. So King Solomon collected a bunch of wise sayings. He also added a bunch of his own wise sayings. Then he arranged them, looks like probably not according to common places, but in some kind of order, and then gave those to his sons so that they could gain wisdom and continually become wise after he was gone, so that they could understand the riddles of the wise and their sayings and a maxim, and ultimately so they could fear God. Now, the scope of a commonplace book will determine what kinds of quotes will go in your collection. So if you have a general commonplace book, that is a collection of all the quotations that you want to store, that you want to remember. All of them, from fiction, nonfiction, from science textbooks, from movies, wherever. If it's a quote you want to remember or chew on or think about, you put it in your general commonplace book. But if the scope is limited to a particular topic, then you just collect quotes on that topic in that commonplace book. So here I have my Pocket Proverbs commonplace book of wisdom. This is a collection of wise sayings. And since it's a collection of wise sayings, I don't need common places in order to find different quotes. They're all wisdom. They would all be under the tag or the commonplace wisdom. These are wise sayings, and it's actually helpful for me to not have them categorized. One, because the commonplace or the category or the tag would be as long as some of the wise sayings, which is silly. But then secondly, as I'm looking back through my commonplace book, it's good to see the other wise sayings that I've collected. It reminds me of all the wise sayings that I thought were so wise in the first place. So I'm looking for a particular wise saying to add to a Substack post or to a Facebook post or whatever, maybe a speech. I'm looking back through and I'm finding a whole lot of other wise sayings, and that's jogging my memory and hopefully helping me become wise if I'm going to actually act on these wise sayings. So then the purpose of the commonplace book is also going to determine how you keep your commonplace book. Is this just a collection of quotations for you to pull from or for you to ruminate on and reflect back on? Or is this a commonplace book where you're adding your own thoughts to the quotations that you've collected? Are you manuscripting out different blog posts or journal articles or Facebook posts or essays or whatever? If you're doing anything extra, then I would call that a manuscript commonplace book. And I didn't make that up. That's actually from the literature. But if you are just collecting quotations and putting them in your Commonplace book, I would call that a treasury Commonplace book. And I did coin that one. It's not the best word in the world, but it's a storehouse. It's a collection. You're not adding your own thoughts. You're not exegeting or anything like that. It's just a treasury of quotations. So then the last part of my working definition is the audience of the Commonplace book. And this is pretty simple. Most of our Commonplace books are for us, or maybe for our family after we pass away, or maybe for your family right now. Maybe you're passing your Commonplace book around to your other family members and they're adding quotations. That would be a really cool way to keep a Commonplace book, like a family treasury Commonplace book. But usually it's not for the public. However, people used to do that. They were called printed Commonplace books. There's an entire book about it that I'm using in my research for my forthcoming book, Journal Like a Philosopher. It's by Ann Moss, and it's like $175 or more, which is wild. But I bought this book so you don't have to, and I'm going to share with you some of the insights in forthcoming videos right here on ParkNotes. But she talks all about this phenomenon of the printed Commonplace book. Scholars would actually collect up a bunch of their quotations that were inspiring or they thought were particularly wise or represented some of the best cutting-edge research in their field. They would collect those together, and then they would have that printed up for the public's consumption. That's such a cool thing that I wish we kept doing. We don't really do this that often anymore, but how cool would it be to have your favorite thinkers all in one book? What if your favorite thinker made a Commonplace book and then had it printed up and you could buy it and then read your favorite thinker's favorite quotations? That would be fantastic. People used to do that, and I really want to bring that back. Now I've become kind of obsessed with Commonplace books. I probably have too many, but a lot of the ones that I keep are research for you guys, so I can help you see which one is best for you. I spend a lot of time collecting notebooks and using them and trying out different methods, so much so that sometimes I forget to eat. Now that actually reminds me of the sponsor for this video, Factor. Trying to be an active reader who is working on their TBR, trying to be a self-learner, trying to be an independent scholar or artist of some kind, while trying to live a healthy lifestyle and have a job and maybe kids and a family, that can be super overwhelming. That's why I love Factor, because it gives me the flexibility to stay active while not succumbing to a bunch of cheat meals. It's just 2 minutes in the microwave and you're done. Now you're fueled with a meal that supports the lifestyle you're trying to keep up with. I have a lot of different jobs, a lot of different projects, and on top of that, I'm still trying to lift weights and train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Factor makes it possible for me to have a healthy and delicious meal on the go. They've doubled the size of their menu to 80 plus rotating weekly meals, and they're introducing a new meal customization option that allows select proteins to be swapped at no additional cost. So if you love chicken but hate pork chops, you can swap for free. So not only are Factor meals easy, they are high protein, calorie smart, and they actually taste really good. So if you're worried about portion control, Factor makes that super easy. If you're worried about getting enough calories and protein, Factor makes that easy as well. They make it easy to pick the meals that are best for your goals. Some of my favorite meals include Parmesan and garlic cream shredded beef, charred corn, and shredded chicken cavatappi, and their chocolate banana protein shake was fantastic. So I use Factor, and I think you should too. It will help you keep on track with your own fitness goals, even in the midst of becoming a notebook nerd. So head to factor75.com or use the link below and use promo code ParkNotes FB50 at checkout for 50% off, plus a full year of free breakfast. Again, that's code ParkNotes FB50, all caps, at factor75.com, and you're going to get 50% off plus a free breakfast for a year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with my code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. So big thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now let's jump back in with printed Commonplace books. Okay, so like I said, I grabbed this book by Ann Moss. It is Printed Commonplace Books in the Structure of Renaissance Thought. The price varies. It was so expensive when I got it. I had to start a successful YouTube channel in order to justify buying this book and afford buying this book. But now it's a tax write-off, which is kind of cool. I want to share a lot from this with you guys, but for this video, I'll just share that printed Commonplace books had their place in education back in the day. People would have them printed up, and then that was part of your curriculum. It was like your textbook. You would have a commonplace book for rhetoricians. You'd look at quotes from some of the best speeches, and you would either write them back out and learn their structure, or you would comment on them, or you would read them and memorize them in order to recite them and get the right cadence. So there were rhetoricians, there were also theologians and excerpts from different systematic theologies. Printed commonplace books were a big part of education. So I would love to see the printed commonplace book come back into our education. But there's also another side stream of the printed commonplace book, which is in the wisdom tradition, and these were called Gnomologia. So we'll probably say that the G is silent, but in Erasmian pronunciation of Greek, you pronounce the G. So like a gnome would be a gnome, which is pretty fun. So the Gnomologia tradition was the tradition of collecting wise sayings. I didn't know that I was doing this for years and years, but I have been. I have this Pocket Proverbs commonplace book. It's super simple. It's just quotations, and then I have a line at the side where I can put the citation of the quotation, and that's really it. So this Gnomologia tradition goes all the way back, like I said, to King Solomon, and it's fantastic. It's a collection of sententiae. These are wise sayings like maxims and proverbs and aphorisms and dictums. I know that we use these things interchangeably, but they actually are different things. An aphorism is like the Mac Daddy of the wise sayings. These are pithy and short and isolated and philosophical, and they're witty. It's supposed to be kind of ironic and funny, whereas the proverb is supposed to be straightforward, understood right away, so that you get the wise teaching and you just put it right down in your heart, and then you go and act on it. A maxim is probably really similar to a proverb, but Aristotle, in his book on rhetoric, has a very particular understanding of what a maxim is and how they should function in a moral argument. So it's a long history, it's a long tradition. I'm writing about it in my book, which will be really fun and hard to work through. But I think we should bring back this Gnomologia understanding of the printed commonplace book. And so I have a couple more modern printed commonplace books. Like I said, not a ton of people are still doing these, but I found just a couple. One of my mentors, Jerry Root, he's a C.S. Lewis scholar. He has a printed commonplace book of C.S. Lewis. It's called The Quotable C.S. Lewis. I've talked about this in other books. And this one is arranged according to commonplaces. So you'll see these headings on the side. It will say something like liberty or Jesus, Savior. So you'll find all the quotes from C.S. Lewis on Jesus being the Savior, or his trilemma. Jesus is God or lunatic or an evil man, liar, lunatic, Lord. We have a commonplace on fairy tales. So these are going to be his quotes on fairy tales. And if you want to find those kind of quotes, you look up the commonplace fairy tales. And here are all the quotations on that. So if you want to see what a printed commonplace book would look like, check out the Quotable C.S. Lewis. It's edited by Jerry Root and Wayne Martindale. And this is a very good book. These are the kind of things that I want to see come back. Another more recent one would be the Quotable Mark Twain. This is his essential aphorisms, witticisms, and concise opinions. And this one is edited by R. Kent Rasmussen. And again, it's super similar. We have commonplaces, and then we have the quotations, and even the years where Mark Twain wrote the different aphorisms. Aphorisms are wonderful, beautiful things. That is a tradition in and of itself. We have books like Georg Lichtenberg's The Waste Books, or we have books like Pascal's Pensées. These are collections of one thinker's aphorisms. So we also have printed commonplace books from other historical figures like Thomas Jefferson. This is his literary commonplace book. And this one's, it's cool. It's Thomas Jefferson's. It's not my favorite, partially because the guy was such a genius. He would quote things in the original Greek or the original Latin. And that's just a lot of work to read through if you know those languages. I don't read Latin, so I have to look that stuff up. I sort of read Koine Greek, but it's a slog to try and read back through. But it's just really cool. This guy was an absolute genius, and we have his commonplace book. It's been printed up for us to read over. What kind of literary works was Thomas Jefferson into? What did he think were so valuable that he wrote them down and had them printed up for us? And then one of my favorite printed commonplace bookers or printers of commonplace books is W.H. Auden, the poet. He was a student of J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. This guy studied under that guy. It's really cool. And we have his commonplace book, A Certain World, and it's just, the subtitle is A Commonplace Book. And this represents his printed commonplace book. It's not all of the quotations that he kept in his commonplace books, but he collated them together and printed this one up for his audience. Here are the quotations that really impacted me that I want you to read also. So he's got quotes in here from Tolkien and Lewis, but he's got some from Chaucer and all the usual suspects, as well as a bunch of authors that I was not familiar with before reading this. So this represents exactly what I want to see. I want to see more thinkers preparing their favorite quotations from their various commonplace books, having them printed up and then sold to people like me. I want to know, what are your favorite quotations? He also co-edited the Viking Book of Aphorisms, and this was with Louis Cronenberger. And it's just a collection of a bunch of different aphorisms. It's really beautiful, really cool, from all the different aphoristic philosophers of the West. There's probably some from the East in here as well. But it's wonderful and beautiful, and I want more of it. And because I love the printed commonplace book so much, I've actually started my own. It's called Proverb Peddling, and this is a zine. It's a personal magazine. It's half commonplace book, where I am collecting the wise sayings from my own pocket Proverbs book of wisdom, and I'm putting those in here, printed up for you. It's a printed commonplace book, so it's half that. It's half a printed commonplace book, and the other half is exposition on various wise sayings. So I have a podcast that I haven't worked on a whole ton called Proverb Peddling, and it's got that little logo. And this is hopefully going to help me or force me to make a bunch more of those episodes. But in that podcast, I'll take a wise saying and then I'll expound on it. I will tell you some historical background. I'll help you think about the philosophical nature of that wise saying, and then I'll help you apply it to your life so you can live more wisely. I'm including the full manuscripts of those episodes in the first half of this. So the first one I have is "Man is a thinking reed." That's a really famous quotation from Blaise Pascal's Pensées, and it's super duper deep. So I'm expounding on that in the first edition, the first issue of Proverb Peddling. I also have a practical essay on how to find wisdom that I wrote for my Substack audience. It's a paid post over there. I also have another practical wisdom article. This is how to create your own university course in order to teach yourself almost anything. This was a video that I did here on ParkNotes. Then I turned it into a blog post over on Parker's Ponderings, and it blew up in both places. So apparently you guys really like this idea of creating your own university-style course to guide your own self-study. So I wrote that up for you. If you are a physical person, if you like physical media, then this is the zine for you, the book of wisdom for you. So then I have my sayings of the sages. That's what I'm calling my printed commonplace book of wisdom. This is me joining the Gnomologia tradition and printing up wise sayings for you. And then finally, I have Parker's Apothegms. These are my own aphorisms. I'm trying to work on becoming an aphoristic philosopher. I think we've lost the art of the aphorism. I'm not saying mine are super amazing, but I'm working on it, and I will share those with you as well. So this is me doing my part in trying to bring back the printed commonplace book. So there you have it. There is the printed commonplace book. I hope that these don't remain lost. I hope that we can bring these back into the public light. And for those who are already keeping commonplace books, I hope you'll consider creating your own printed commonplace book. And if you want to grab my effort at the printed commonplace book, you can grab issue number 1 of Proverb Peddling from the link in the description, or check out Parker Zines on Etsy.